Welcome to Grow It, Cook It, Eat It. This series is really about three things: growing your own food, cooking your own food, and sharing it with family and friends. And I want to thank all of you for being part of our Facebook group, Grow It, Cook It, Eat It. I don't know if you realized it, but we're at 80,000 gardeners from around the globe. And I really enjoy going on there every day, getting to interact with all of you, but to really see what you're growing and cooking in your gardens. Today we're going to talk about eggplant. I'm going to show you how to care for eggplant that are growing in containers. I used to grow my eggplants out in the garden, but they would get hit by flea beetles all the time and they just weren't productive. They just got damaged too much. So I moved them into containers and I grow them right here by my steps, and these plants have been the most productive eggplants that I've ever grown in my garden, all grown in containers. I'm going to show you how to set up the container soil organically. I'm going to show you also how I feed and care for these come late August. Stacy's going to show you how to do fried eggplant, and she's actually going to do that out in her garden. And eggplant, as she states, is a wonderful substitute for meat. You can really replace meats with eggplant. They're just a nice hearty vegetable or fruit, depending on how you want to look at it. So let's go to 3 weeks ago when I first did my first harvest of these vegetables, and I'll talk a little bit about the plants that are right here. And then we'll come back and get started with today's harvest and then setting up the soil. So I'm actually on my way to vacation. So what I want to do when you're leaving for vacation, especially for a week, is to pick everything that is going to mature so that it doesn't start growing on your plant, turning to seed, and it really changes how your eggplant produces or your plants produce. So I'm going to cut off just everything that's of good size. I'm going to show you the harvest. This is the Ichabod eggplant. This plant is a little bit drooping in the leaves. It's because it needs water. I just got home from work. But you want to take off just about all the eggplants on here. Now, if I wasn't going on vacation, I'd let these grow to about this size, but this is the perfect size for the Ichabods. Let's see, a couple more big ones in there. Here's the Black Beauty. Now the way you can tell that an eggplant is ready is this is kind of dulling. When the shiny purple color starts turning to kind of more of a dull, dark purple, that's really when it's ready. Of course you could pick it smaller if you want to, but this is definitely ready. If you left it on, this would start turning kind of a yellow-orange, and that's when it's starting to turn to seed, and the plant has the signal that it's produced enough fruit, it's making seed, and it's not going to really start flowering. I don't know if you can see still on here, but there's a small purple one. We're going to leave that one on there. And then let's see if I can move that. Well, I'll show you actually a couple of the examples. I'm going to take the small eggplants, and there's about 6 of these. I'm not going to harvest all those on video, but this is ready. This is the smaller eggplant. I think it's Patio Baby. Yeah, Patio Baby. This is the right color for the harvesting. This has been left on too long. That's when it starts to yellow. When your eggplants start to yellow, it's really missed prime harvesting time. Let me harvest the rest. And this is everything we harvested off of these 3 plants. They're in a 5-gallon, a 10-gallon, and a 5-gallon container. I got one Black Beauty before this, but this is the main wave of the first harvest, and we're going to take care of them so we get another round, and hopefully a 3rd round later into August, early September. You saw the first harvest. This is the second harvest a couple weeks later. When I shot that part of the video, all these plants got fed with fish emulsion, an organic water-soluble fertilizer. For this round, I'm actually going to use a chemical fertilizer because these plants suck the life out of the soil. And now that it's almost September, I just want to give everything that I can back to the soil so that the plants can use it, green up, go through some more production. And the chemical fertilizers are perfectly safe. They're safe for you, they're safe for your plants. They're only a problem if they're overused and abused, and that's typically when you're out in your garden planted beds. Eggplant are wonderful for containers. This is again a 5-gallon container, a 10-gallon container, and a 5-gallon container. Perfect size for the Black Beauty. And really, because it's the end of the season, I'm going to take off all the eggplant on here. Some really nice size. Oh, cut that off. Really nice size Ichabons. And I have about 5 to 6 more weeks of a great growing season for eggplant. They do enjoy the heat. And when I feed them, I just want to take off all the eggplant, encourage more flower growth. Now, there's a little tiny baby on there. I'm going to keep that one on there. And then these are really set up to remove the leaves, stake up, and get them really fed and producing again, flowering again, so that I get a third and fourth wave of eggplant. Here's the second harvest of eggplant. They grow really, really well in containers. Let's cut over to Stacy out in the garden. She's going to show you how to fry the eggplant. If you've never cooked with it before, this is the perfect way to do it. And give her a little bit of credit because she is out there in 104-degree heat. When we come back, we'll talk about staking, taking care of diseases, and feeding these plants, and how to set up the container soil.
Today on the show, I'm going to be cooking with eggplant. Eggplant is one of the most versatile fruits I have ever known. It is one of the meatiest fruits. You can replace meat in dishes with it if you'd like. It soaks up sauces well, and cooks across the world are using eggplant. It originated in Asia and made its way to Great Britain, Australia, and here, and now we get to cook with this most marvelous fruit. Let's go fry some eggplant. Eggplant is the meat of the garden. It is one of the most versatile fruits, and if you're a debater, you may say vegetables, that there is in the garden. And I'm going to show you one of my favorite ways to make eggplant is to fry the eggplant. It brings out the flavors, and plus you can use all kinds of sauces with an eggplant. And you could put it over rice, you could put it over, or with marinara sauce. You could just do just about everything that you do with meat with eggplant. So I've got some already frying in here, and I'm going to check on that real quick before I take you to the next thing. It's ready to be turned. And I have oil in this pan and a little bit of butter. It's a 3-step procedure to making this fried eggplant, and it's really pretty simple. So I slice my eggplant, and you can soak it if you want to in buttermilk. A lot of people do. I don't really do that all the time. I mean, I want it to be simple. I want to get food on the table quickly for my family, and I'm ready to cook. So I just slice the eggplant, and usually mine is not bitter, and put it in some flour that I've seasoned here with a little bit of salt and pepper. And then I put it into an egg wash, and then into breadcrumbs. And you know, it's inevitable that I'm not going to have breadcrumbs in the house. So it's so easy just to make your own. You just toast the bread until it's really good and toasted. There's no moisture left in it. Put the crumbs in your blender, and you've got homemade breadcrumbs. You can add any kind of herbs you want to it, and you're there. You don't have to do anything. That's it. So let's see about this eggplant. All right, it looks like it's about ready. It's going to be super crunchy and super tender on the inside, just like a piece of pounded steak. It's going to be amazing. And I don't know if you know this or not, but eggplant used to be white, and still is in some places. And in Europe, they called it the eggplant because it was little bitty balls that looked like eggs. Okay, so I'm going to finish frying this up, put my newly battered one in, and I'm going to have a great feast of eggplant. There are many, many other recipes that you can do with eggplant. You can roast it, make it into hummus, you can do all kinds of things. So don't forsake the meaty eggplant from your garden. And thanks for tuning in to Grow It, Cook It, Eat It.
Thank you so much, Stacy, for dealing with that 104-degree Alabama heat while you stood over 300 to 400 degrees of hot oil. Stacy has a cookbook called Stacy Lyn's Harvest Cookbook, and it's really a perfect companion for Grow It, Cook It, Eat It. You can find it on Amazon. I'll put the link down in the video description. So here's what they look like staked up. This is some of the leaves that I took off. Also took the weeds out from around them, really opening it up, let the air flow through. Taking out the weeds gives less places for insects to hide. And just want to show you what I did real quick. Dropped in that big green stake there and just tied the main stems to the stake. Nothing fancy or anything like that. You can see with the Ichabod that the leaves really got crowded together, so I'm going to thin that out a little bit, remove the most damaged looking leaves. Same thing with the patio baby. When I raised them, stuff got really compacted together. That's okay, it's not going to hurt the plant. Before I get to that, just wanted to show you what a top dressing is. So I fluffed up the soil, added some soil to the top there, and this is my organic fertilizer. Take about a about a tablespoon, and just sprinkle it around the outer part of the container. And then scratch it into the surface. With a bigger container like this, you're going to want to put in about 2 tablespoons, 3 tablespoons, and with this one, 1 or 2 tablespoons. Just don't pile it all up around the stem. Sprinkle it around and then just scratch it into the surface. This is an insoluble fertilizer. It needs to break down with different microbes in the soil. It's just a top dressing, and it'll give a nice slow feed over the next 6 weeks. We are going to get to that water-soluble fertilizer. Now for my water-soluble feeding, I'm going to use actually fish emulsion. This is an organic fertilizer, a 511 NP and K, and I'm going to mix in quarter-strength chemical fertilizer. This is a 15-30-15. That is way too high NP and K for your plants. Use this at about quarter strength. And what I want to do is I really want to cover the nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and also the calcium, magnesium, and sulfur, and the other micronutrients the chemical fertilizers bring in. Again, because these plants have really been sucking the life out of the soil, so I am feeding them really what they need. Now you could go with all organic if you want. This is an organic fertilizer by Job's. This is a 304 fertilizer. You really want to find a water-soluble organic that has a nice representation of NP and K if you're going to use that. I'm not sure why that's a 0, but beware, you just want to make sure you're getting a nice representation, again, because this is so important, of NP and K in there, and the chemical fertilizers add in the second level macronutrients and some of the micronutrients. So this is filled with 2 gallons of water. Follow the exact instructions on the fish fertilizer, and then put in a quarter strength worth of the chemical fertilizers in here. Now, again, this is water soluble, 2 gallons, and this is how I do it. A lot of people like to just see how I water it. Cover the leaves, and then just fill in the container with about a half a gallon of water. There's 2 gallons here, so these plants will really take all this fertilizer. Cover the leaves. This one will get more than a half a gallon. And then the same thing for the last one, and you get the idea. So this is pretty much how I do my water-soluble feedings. And again, it's every 7 to 14 days depending on the size of your plants. All right, so let's get to the general staking that you see here. Taking care of the insects with chemical dust, and I'm going to show you a basic container soil setup. Nothing fancy here. As you're doing this, look for diseases and insects. There's a little beetle moving around. I don't know if you can see it. That's not a flea beetle. Flea beetles are even smaller. So I do have beetles crawling around. Lots of new growth. And all you're going to do is really go in here, cut out the leaves that look like they're blocking the smaller leaves, ones that are more beat up, just like that. And just open up the space. Don't overdo it, but give them enough room to really breathe. And I will go through and do all that. And as I'm looking, I see lots of tiny holes, so I'm going to show you how I use insect dust to take care of these. I put the insect dust on late in the evening when the good insects, the bees, are gone. Dust the leaves, the beetles will crawl through it, it will kill them, it will take care of all the insects, and then in the morning, early morning, I rinse it all off. Here's all the leaves I took off the 3 plants. As I was doing that, I did find a lot of beetles, so I am going to put down the insect dust. You can use whatever insect dust you want to use. They are all indiscriminate killers, which means they will kill good and bad insects. So I highly recommend putting the dust on late at night, washing it off in the morning. The insects will crawl through that throughout the night, and you will take care of the problems with the beetles. But you can see that I've opened up the plants. All the leaves that are upside down will correct and turn towards the sun. You know, lots of damage, but the plant is doing well. Lots of new growth, new flowers, new eggplant. Looking really good. All the new leaves are coming in. So taking care of the insects, giving it a nice feed right now will do wonders for the next 4 to 5 weeks. And look at all the patio baby, lots of flowers in there. So for dusting, let's see if I can do this left-handed. Again, late at night, whatever dust you want, and just drop it down. That's plenty of dust. Try and get the outside leaves. The beetles will walk all over your plants, and that's enough dust to really kill off an infestation. And again, remove it in the morning. And finally, the container mix. So for a container mix, and actually for 2018, this is the standard mix that I'm going to use. You want 50% peat moss in your container mixes. If you don't want to use peat moss, you could use cocoa coir or a combination of both, but it's 50% peat moss. Peat moss will retain water, which is so important for your containers, and it's also nice and loose, and it'll allow the root systems of your plants to really get down into the container. So you want 50% peat moss, and then 50% of any other soil. It can be your garden soil or anything you buy in the store, but it's a 50-50 mix. So for setting it up organically, any organic fertilizer is perfectly fine. Stick around to 5-5-5 if you can. Fill your container up halfway, 2 to 3 tablespoons in the bottom. Fill it up the rest of the way, 2 to 3 tablespoons in the rest of it. If you're using a bigger container, a couple more tablespoons. If you're using a smaller container, a few less tablespoons. And the whole key is really that 50-50 mix. 50% peat moss, 50% any other soil. Your garden soil is perfectly fine. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for being part of our Facebook group, Grow It, Cook It, Eat It. Please check out the video description below. You can find a link to my seed shops. And please consider Stacy's cookbook, Stacy Lyn's Harvest Cookbook. It's a perfect companion for Grow It, Cook It, Eat It. Thanks again for watching.